I liked it more as it went on, but I did not particularly care for it at the beginning. And part of it was part of it honestly was fatigue of seeing shows that are about people doing bad stuff. And so the show opens with a bunch of thieves. And look, they're supposed to be sort of scrappy street urchins, and they're whatever, they're living, they're not part of high society in this world. And you'll go through and you'll see that the government is very, very detached from the rest of the world. There's clearly a ruling class. There's clearly an upper crust that is sort of making decisions for literally everyone else. And it's very oligarchical and all of that kind of stuff. So I get it. I mean, they and then also, like, I guess as you kind of get into the story more, you kind of learn that this sort of undercity thing is really where all these people who started a rebellion many, many years ago kind of live and kind of hide out in anonymity and obscurity or whatever. And, they were the losers of a civil war, right? So I'm supposed to kind of feel something for these kids, but I kind of don't. And also I'm really annoyed that the first thing I see of them is that they're stealing somebody's stuff. And because I don't know anything about who they're stealing from. And by the way, it turns out that the guy that they're stealing from isn't really a bad guy. He's not somebody who stole a bunch of stuff himself. In fact, he was working outside of the law on his own because he was a victim of bad policy, restrictive policy. Right. So I liked him better. So I like the Jace is the character who owns this, or I think he's just staying in the penthouse apartment because he's actually poor. He's from, not the upper crust, whatever, but he's been, he's got a patron who is one of the councilwomen, I guess in that case,
councilwomen,
one of the patrons. And they're paying for his education and whatnot. And he's doing what he's doing because he was in a horrible, traumatic situation when he was a kid, and his parents lost their lives. And then he was saved by a magic user. And he wanted to see if he could use arcane magic to save more people, to create prosthetics and defend the city from external attackers and things like that. And it actually with, defensive stuff like shields and, and so I really liked him as a character, and I kind of really empathized with his story. And I think if I'd started with his story first, I'd have been a little bit more invested because I would have seen it as his story a little bit more. But instead, it's kind of more Vi's story. And Vi starts out being,
just a terrible kid.
She's terrible.
She's awful.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have any reason to like her as a person particularly. And so I don't know. I just have a lot of fatigue for people starting stories with horrible people, and I didn't find much redeeming about her or really her crew. I didn't really care much about. And honestly, it wasn't really until the fourth episode. I think it's the fourth episode where something happens, which we'll get into in spoilers, I think, but that shakes up the dynamic considerably. That was where I got interested and invested in the story, was only in the middle of the series.